Well, good afternoon to you on this Wednesday. Definitely an active night last night. We had some storms that rolled through near or just above severe levels, though no official reports of any winds exceeding severe levels last night. But there was some minor damage in a couple of spots with a few trees blown down here and there. There were some power outages that lasted well into this morning as well. All of that is very typical with a thunderstorm that can roll through. I think it's just been a while since we've seen thunderstorms that move through southwest Louisiana, so especially in it coming at 10 o'clock at night last night or later, depending on where you were. But they serve as a good reminder that over the next probably still 4 to 6 days, we may still see more of that. Luckily, it won't be anytime soon. Here's a look at the satellite radar as of this afternoon, the last about 6 hours or so. Not a lot. We've had a little bit of rain here and there around the area, but this has all been light. No storms locally. There are some storms to our east, but none of that's heading in our direction. A wider view of the satellite radar, though, you can see the next wave developing to our west. Though, first thing I'll mention is anything up here in north central Texas, like between San Angelo and Lubbock, it's weakening anyway, so that's a sign that it's not going to be a problem. But that far north, everything is moving to the northeast, so that would not head in our direction anyway. It's this activity that's forming kind of beyond some of our United States-based radars, but you can see some of the storms in northern Mexico, south and southwest of Del Rio. The question is, will these become more organized? Because right now, this is just disorganized rain and not active, strong thunderstorms. Some models suggest that later tonight, there could be a consolidation, or these storms could congeal into a larger complex. Something down in that area definitely could move closer to our area into the early morning hours tomorrow. But it is positive to see that it is very disorganized at this moment. That bodes well for the next few hours staying dry. In fact, I do think now through at least midnight, we see nothing more than some sprinkles or light showers. There's the radar locally, and you can see some of that rain. All of this is very light, but there are some light showers across portions of Beauregard, Allen parishes. I do see one little area of a little bit heavier rain that's out east of Oberlin there along Highway 26, and that's kind of moving off toward the northeast out along the Highway 104. That's north of the Elton area, northwest of Basile. Farther to the south, there are a few light showers here and there across Calcasieu, Jeff Davis, and Cameron parishes. And just because there's nothing showing up doesn't mean that there can't be some sprinkles or areas of fine mist and drizzle. Sometimes when the rain is that light, it just doesn't pick up very well on the radar at all. The only other thing I see, there have been some new showers popping up out over the Gulf waters, and we may see more of this with time. Remember, for showers and thunderstorms to form, normally you need heating. And by that, when you have heating, when the warm air rises, causes the moisture to rise into the sky. And as it does, it condensates, produces clouds, and eventually produces rain. Well, right now, because of the rain over land, it's warmer out over the Gulf waters. And it's always warmer over the Gulf waters at night. So what's going on, that's where the rain's developing now, is out over the relatively warmer Gulf waters. But it is still mid-May, and those waters are not terribly warm, thankfully, but they are warm enough that they are producing these showers. I say all that because later tonight, we may end up seeing more development of rain. Speaking of it not being warm over land, there's a look at the temperatures. Everyone in the mid to upper 70s, except at Fort Polk, which is the warmest spot at 82 degrees. Here's a look at our FeatureCast computer model, and I explained this yesterday, but I'll go into it one more time again. Remember this methodology, if you will, or mindset, that if the models don't understand what's going on now, it's hard to believe that their forecast is going to be correct. I say all that because I want to pop the radar back on here, and you'll notice there's the rain, and it's doing a pretty good job, in my opinion, of showing where the best coverage of rain is at now, and that is east of our area with a little bit of light rain over southwest Louisiana. I went into this in detail yesterday, so I'm not going to bore you again with it, but it's that kind of adage of garbage in, garbage out. If the models don't understand what's going on at the current time when they start, it's hard to put much faith in what they show going forward. So I say all that because overall this model appears to be doing a decent job, as good as any model can. So let's talk about what's going to happen tonight. Fast forward through around 8 p.m. around sunset. Notice not much change. There's a lot of clouds around, maybe a few sprinkles or light showers, but really not expecting much through probably around midnight. But the model does try to suggest that by the time we get close to midnight, that we may start to see some showers developing offshore out over the Gulf waters. Those could end up moving ashore. Now, right now, the model's suggesting that that may pass to our southeast and not impact southwest Louisiana. But we'll go back here to around midnight, coming in a little bit closer to southwest Louisiana. It still does show some showers and maybe even some thunderstorms developing and continuing through the early morning hours tomorrow. And look at the rainfall totals. Yeah, maybe 1 to 2 inches out of those showers. Now, let's don't get too caught up in the number of 1/100th of an inch of rain at DeQuincy and 2.33 for Lake Charles. No model, no matter how good it's doing this right now, can ever predict down to a city level like that as far as a rain amount. But the idea that someone could see 1 to 2, maybe even 3 inches of rain looks likely. And that's exactly what happened last night with the storms. Portions of Moss Bluff, I know, saw 2 to 3 inches of rain, while here in the city of Lake Charles, it was more in the 1 to 2 inch range. And there were some parts of Calcasieu last night that were less than an inch of rain. And I specifically call out Calcasieu Parish with numbers because the parish here has a very extensive rain gauge network across the parish. Makes it easy to look up rainfall totals over the last, really, you can go back over a considerable length of time or look at it almost instantaneous. Now, I do think the model's onto something, that overnight, sometime after midnight, there could be an increase in rain chances. Right now, would that be strong to severe? My gut says no, because we don't have any heating and we're not likely to see any heating of the atmosphere, which causes it to become more unstable and produce stronger storms. So probably just rain. Still could be locally heavy at times. There still could be some thunder, and just like last night proved, there still could be some gusty winds out of any thunderstorms that develop. But as far as a tornado risk, that risk is incredibly low. I'm never going to tell you it's zero, but it's really close to zero as far as tornado risk with this. The atmosphere just isn't supportive of that. So if we do in fact get rain or even a few thunderstorms overnight, we may end up seeing more limited activity again during the day tomorrow, which is precisely what the model is trying to show until maybe late in the afternoon. And this is the scenario I have been trying to stress over the last couple of days, that just because the rain chance is high does not mean that it rains all day long, nor that it rains everywhere in the area. In fact, this is all the way till 8 o'clock tomorrow night. Look at the rainfall totals there on the screen. A few showing barely no rain at all to a couple of spots. It's outside of our viewing area, but again, we don't focus on points, maybe 3 or 4 inches of rain. That's the very definition of what I'm talking about, that this is highly unpredictable to get down to a time or amounts of rain. But the idea that rain is going to be likely, not only tomorrow, but over the coming days, looks very likely. It's just impossible to time out these larger disturbances, and models rarely handle those correctly. So, speaking of that, I purposely drew your attention to that activity down near south of Del Rio, and you can see Futurecast here is picking up on some development there, and we'll put that into motion, and you can see by around midnight tonight, that's pushing more east toward Brownsville and Corpus Christi, and not in our direction. So again, I think if something develops overnight for us, it's going to be more homegrown, if you will, or developing closer to us and then forming. And that by nature is even more difficult to predict because, again, models have to accurately predict where it develops and then where it goes. So it'll be one of those scenarios where, unfortunately, we will just have to watch the radar and see what happens. But the large-scale model doesn't show any major features through tomorrow. So let's talk about Friday, where, again, the more out in time you go, the less reliable the model gets. But it does try to show maybe some sort of complex late tomorrow night into Friday morning that could advance in our direction at some point Friday. But remember, the skill of the model to predict something that small of scale grows smaller exponentially the more out in time you go. I will show you the local computer model for Friday. Again, that's 7 a.m. showing that line to the west and then moving across southwest Louisiana during the morning. And if that's the case, we may have a considerable break in the afternoon going into the evening hours. And this is also what I've talked about a couple of times. If you're trying to plan things outdoors, and I know there's a lot of things going on, obviously probably even more this weekend with it being a holiday weekend, if you can be flexible with your plans, you may still be able to do things outdoors. But a couple of notes. One, obviously, it's already rained for many areas, and if we get more rain, the ground's going to be saturated, so keep that in mind. That would be a complicating factor if you're trying to do things outdoors. If you're hoping to be on the water, whether it's on the boats or out on the lake or river or swimming in your own swimming pool or whatever, note that water temperatures are probably going to be cooler. I know personally I can say that because I have a pool in my house, and yes, the water temperature has dropped several degrees over the last 24 hours because of clouds and rain. So even if we don't have storms around, it may not be the most enjoyable to be in the water or out on it, either one. But again, if your plans are flexible and you're willing to kind of roll the dice on that sort of an event, by all means, outdoor events can still go on, and it's not just Friday I'm talking about. Same will hold true through the upcoming weekend. But on the flip side of that, if any chance of rain at all is a problem for you, then my advice, move those plans indoors and you will be safe that way for sure. Looking ahead to Saturday, again, the more out in time, the less reliable, but models trying to show, again, maybe fairly limited in nature, but a big asterisk there if the model is correct. The larger scale models, which always overdo things, still broad brush rain across the entire region. So yeah, this is not just southwest Louisiana. I'm talking about if you're traveling west for the holiday weekend into Texas or even east all the way over toward the Florida beaches. The same is going to hold true, that there will be high rain chances pretty much on a daily basis, but it will ultimately depend on how any various storm complexes develop and play out over each individual day. So I've really not changed much with this 10-day forecast. I'm not lowering or raising these rain chances. I'm going to leave them in about the 60% range now through Memorial Day, which is, of course, on Monday, with, again, the idea there may be time periods where it is not raining, but the overall theme is going to be rain is going to be fairly widespread, at least at times. So if you're trying to get out on the water, be mindful. There may be thunderstorms around, so please use caution. If it's not storming, southeast winds 10 to 15 knots, seas around 2 feet. Obviously, if there's thunderstorms, those numbers could be much higher. Best times looks to be near 6 a.m. and 6:30 p.m. with a good time just before lunchtime. So bottom line, unfortunately, a lot of uncertainty. If you've watched any of my forecasts for any length of time, you know I hate uncertainty. I always tell you this, but I'm also going to tell you when it exists in the forecast, because that is a piece of the forecast. Uncertainty is definitely a piece of a forecast, and that's one thing no model or any model-driven app only can ever tell you. And that's why I always caution to be mindful that if you're looking at other weather apps that maybe show an hourly forecast or anything like that, those are all computer models only. So if the model's right, those numbers will be correct. If the model is not correct, then, well, obviously it's not going to be correct either. So best word of advice, check the radar using our First Alert weather app. Check it frequently and make sure you put the radar into future mode, and it will take, and that's a model forecast, which again, as long as the model's right, but keep checking that and see how things progress with time, especially if you're making plans for the weekend. Well, that's going to conclude things for this edition of First Alert Weather Extra. I'll be back here tomorrow afternoon with another update. Otherwise, I'll see you back on TV in about 11 minutes. Have a great evening.